Hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Nick, and we are really glad to have you with us, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube. We're glad that you have taken a little bit of time to kind of hang out with us. Today, it's a really exciting time because we are now coming into Advent season, which means we are getting so close to Christmas, and that is super fun. So we have some interesting new things that we're going to be doing a little bit today. Now, if this is your first time kind of stumbling onto this group and wondering what kind of church this is, you can see our core values are listed right here. But also, if you want to learn a little bit more about us, you can go to our website at findpathways.com, and we will explain a little bit what we mean by these values that were listed on the screen. There's some things that, as a group of traveling companions, that we have chosen to value in our journey together. We're a group of people that doesn't believe we have all the answers. In fact, we're a group of people that is both cautious and curious. We are cautious in that many of us have had some sort of interest or some sort of involvement in religion in the past, and we've discovered that there's some parts of organized religion that don't turn out very well. And so some of us have seen others around us be harmed by religion. Maybe sometimes just us ourselves have been harmed by religion, and so we find ourselves being a little skeptical about organized religion. But we're also a cautious group, but we're also a curious group. We like to ask a lot of questions, and maybe question things we've thought before, question the biblical text, look at it, read it, say, hey, what did this mean to the people back then? Ask a lot of questions that way. And then what can it mean to us today as well? We're asking questions about what God is like and all sorts of things. So if you find yourself maybe described by those words, cautious and curious, this might be a really good group for you. Now, some housekeeping here of what we're going to be doing, and we have a few little twists today. First of all, we're going to do some singing here in a moment. Billy is going to lead us in a couple songs, and I believe as the Christmas season gets going on, he's going to sprinkle in some fun Christmas songs. So he's going to listen to some songs. In between that, there's a video talking about Advent, trying to prepare us for the Advent season. And then after that, I'm going to come back and I'll speak, and we'll continue on our series called The Death of Religion. And then at the end of our time, we'll have an opportunity to take communion. And for our in-person gatherings, we provide some bread and some juice that represent the body and blood of Jesus so that we can take communion together, remembering Jesus' sacrifice, remembering his new life and the new life that's offered to us. But for those of you at home, this would be a really good time to maybe gather a couple supplies that you might need in order to participate with us in that particular portion of what we're doing if you want to be a part of that. So find some bread in your house, some crackers maybe, or we usually say get some juice or some leftover wine from the night before, and you can use that as the communion symbols today. Now, we are, though, coming up here beginning today, Advent season. And this is a really fun time in the life of the church because we've got some kind of church traditions when it comes to the Christmas time. Now, in your family, you might have some traditions where you set up a tree and you decorate certain ways every year, right? Well, the church has holiday traditions too. And around Christmas, one of our traditions is the Advent wreath. And so there are a total of 5 candles in the Advent wreath, and we light one each Sunday leading up to Christmas. And on Christmas Eve, we light the final candle in the middle, which is the Christ candle. Now, the word Advent, it simply means arrival or coming. It is this idea that the King of the world is coming. And that is what we want to be celebrating here over the next few weeks. And so over the next few weeks, what we're going to be doing is sort of here online, virtually lighting a candle. Last year we lit them in person and it almost burnt my house down. So we're doing sort of a virtual lighting here online. And in person, in our in-person gatherings, there'll be different people lighting a different candle each week. And each week's candle means something different. In fact, this week, the candle really represents this idea of hope. And so today, what I want to do is I want to give a little reading for you to help us kind of get into this holiday season here as we virtually light our own candle on the screen. And what I want to do is I want to show you a famous painting. And each week I'm going to show you a different famous painting. And we are going to allow this artwork to kind of draw us into the Advent season. And so I'm going to read a little piece of scripture for us. I'm going to put the painting on the screen, and I'm going to read a little scripture that the scene sort of illustrates. And then we're going to talk about the art itself and how it might move us in the Advent season. So sit back, relax for a minute, keep your eyes on the screen, and allow me to read to you the story of the Christmas event. We're going to read from Luke chapter 1, verses 26 to 38. And it says, in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary. And he came to her and said, "Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you." But she was much perplexed by his words, and pondered what sort of greeting this might be. Then the angel of God said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God, and now you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you will name him Jesus. He will be great, and will be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord God will give him the throne of his ancestor David, and he will reign over the house of God forever." Mary said to the angel, "How can this be, since I am a virgin?" And the angel said to her, "The power of the Most High will overshadow you, and therefore the child who will be born will be holy, and he will be called Son of God. And now your relative Elizabeth in her old age has conceived a son, for this is the 6th month for her who was said to be barren. For nothing will be impossible with God." Then Mary said, "Here am I, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word." And then the angel departed from her. All right, I want to show you this art piece here. It's called the Annunciation. It is a piece of art that Henry Ossawa Tanner created. And in Henry Ossawa Tanner's depiction of the Annunciation, Mary sits compliantly on her bed, her fingers interlaced, her head slightly bowed. She looks apprehensive. The bedclothes have spilled onto the floor, and a blazing light emanates from the other side of the room. But the detail that jumps out to me is the wrinkling of the carpet. What caused it to bunch up in the middle like that? Did it happen when Mary recoiled in fear at the apparition? Did she spin on her bare feet and throw herself on the bed? I mean, Matthew tells us Mary was greatly troubled at his words, as you could well imagine. And so the angel Gabriel must console her before commissioning her for an extraordinary task. But if you'll notice, there's no indication of Mary's terror in this painting. Only the physical effect of it left in the disturbed rug. She appears to have composed herself. Tanner has captured Mary's quizzical expression at the very moment she asks Gabriel, "How will this be?" She looks skeptical, uncertain, confused. She looks so young. The first Sunday in Advent is a time to declare hope, but this is fragile hope. A young woman, barely a woman, sits acquiescently on her messy bed listening to an angel's crazy message, an insane message, an impossible message, an unbelievable message. Indeed, who would believe what Gabriel says here? That an unmarried teenager will give birth to the hope of the nations? That a nervous virgin will conceive a king, a ruler over all of Jacob's descendants? By depicting Mary at this very moment, Tanner seems to prolong the moment between the angel's announcement and Mary's astonishing response. And he invites us into a kind of pregnant pause, pun intended. A moment in which all the angels in heaven and all the very stuff of creation take a deep breath and wait. And we wait too. And then she speaks in her faltering young voice, "I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled." Whew. Outtake of breath. Hope. Sweet hope. This morning we remember this scene with Mary, and we allow this scene to invite us into the daring feeling of hope. Let's light our virtual candle on the screen and take a minute to sit in the feeling of hope.
And there's just one thing I want to say. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for all you've given to me, for all the blessings that I cannot see. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. With a grateful heart, with a song of praise, with an outstretched arm, I will bless your name. Thank you, Lord. I just want to thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. I just want to thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. For all you've done in my life, you took my darkness and gave me a light. thank you. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. With a grateful heart, with a grateful heart, with a song of praise, with an outstretched arm, I will bless your name. Thank you, Lord. I just want to thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. I just want to thank you, Lord. Oh, thank you, Lord. I just want to thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. I just want to thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. I just want to thank you, Lord. I just want to thank you.
Advent is, it's just a great time of year because you've gone through ordinary time for so long, and it seems like nothing's really happening in the calendar, and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And well, there's college football, which is its own religion. So we have been observing the religious holidays surrounding Roll Tide, Alabama football. But you know, you have all this anticipation for Advent, so it's always so exciting when you have that sort of first Sunday in Advent and things are getting started. And what Advent is it's so great because it's so countercultural to how our culture sort of celebrates and understands Christmas, which is rush, 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 buy, buy, buy. Advent is about waiting. And it's a beautiful season for that reason, because so much of the Christian faith is about waiting. It's about anticipation. It's about Saturday. We talk a lot about Easter Sunday, but there's that whole long Saturday in between where you're hoping and praying and wishing, and things don't look so great. And Advent sort of acknowledges that. You know, Advent's about celebrating and acknowledging the waiting process and waiting for kingdom come and waiting for the incarnation. So it can be really cool and kind of countercultural that way.
If my heart is so overwhelmed and I cannot hear your voice, I'll hold on to what is true, though I cannot see. If the storms of life they come and the road ahead gets steep, I will lift these hands in faith, I will believe. I'll remind myself of all that you've done and the life I have because of your Son. 'Cause love came down and rescued me, love came down and set me free, and I am yours, I am forever yours. Mountain high and valley low, I'll sing, I'll remind my soul that I am yours, I am forever yours. When my heart is filled with hope and every promise comes my way, when I feel your hands of grace rest upon me, staying desperate for you, God, staying humble at your feet, I will lift these hands in praise, I will believe. I'll remind myself of all that you've done and the life I have because of your Son. 'Cause love came down and rescued me, love came down and set me free, and I am yours, I am forever yours. Mountain high and valley low, I'll sing, I'll remind my soul that I am yours, I am forever yours. 'Cause I am yours, I am yours, all my days, Jesus, I am yours. 'Cause I am yours, I am yours, all my days, Jesus, I am yours. 'Cause love came down and rescued me, love came down and set me free, I am yours, I am forever yours. Mountain high, valley low, I'll sing out, remind my soul that I am yours, I am forever yours. 'Cause love came down and rescued me, love came down and set me free, and I am yours, I am forever yours. Mountain high and valley low, I'll sing, I'll remind my soul that I am yours,
We're still doing Halloween somehow. We've even started the Advent candles, and here we are still messing around with this Halloween imagery. I mean, Halloween's over. Thanksgiving is over, even. I mean, it's time for Christmas, but here we are still holding on to the spooky Halloween theme, right, for our series. And I know, I get it. All right, we're ready to move on into Christmas and all of that, but the spooky stuff's still hanging on here for just a week or two more. And I was thinking about some of this stuff this week, and thinking like, man, this Halloween stuff, this imagery we're using here is going on and on and on, even though it's Christmas. And I was actually noticing that I still have my pumpkins on the porch at the house, right? I mean, we still had some pumpkins out there. And I was looking at them, I thought, hey, they still look pretty good, right? And picked one up, though, felt a little soft, and I turned it around and noticed that it was all moldy and rotten, like from the inside going out. And it was like, okay, maybe it is time to move along from all of this Halloween imagery, right? Apparently it's time to move on and go to Christmas, because sometimes things might look good on the outside, but you open them up a little bit and they are very rotten in the middle. Now, we're doing a series here and we will be done with the imagery soon, but right now we're doing a series that we're getting close to finishing up called The Death of Religion. And what we're noticing here is that sometimes some things, like my pumpkin, can look really good on the surface, but upon closer inspection, we discover that they are full of a bunch of stuff that is rotting, moldy, and gross. And a lot of us have actually had this experience with pumpkins, of course, but we've also had this experience, many of us, with religion itself, where we saw something that at first looked inspiring and good, but after we got a little more acquainted with it and took a little deeper look, we saw some stuff that really turned our stomachs. And religion can do that. It can look pretty on the outside, but be completely dead on the inside. And that is actually what Jesus is going to point out here in our text today. Now, in this series called The Death of Religion, we're looking at Matthew chapter 23. It's part of the last discourse or teaching of Jesus, some of the last things that he taught before he went to the cross. And this particular section, Matthew 23, is often called the Woes of Jesus. And there are 7 or 8 woes, depending on how you want to count them here. And woes we've talked about before, but if you're just tuning in with us here, a woe is something akin to a curse. It is Jesus' critiques or the things that Jesus says will kill religion and that the people who do them will be cursed for doing them. And just like my pumpkin that looked nice on the front side but was kind of rotten on the inside, Jesus points out in our woe today that religion, when it goes bad, looks a lot like that too. So we're going to look at our 6th woe today. We're near the end here. So let's read it and then we'll talk about it here. Matthew 23 verse 27 is where we will start. And it says, "Woe to you," or "Cursed are you, teachers of the law and Pharisees. You hypocrites, you're like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside, you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside, you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness." Wow, that's nice, Jesus. Whitewashed tombs, he called them. I assume that if they celebrated Halloween back then, the way that we do today, Jesus would have seen a moldy pumpkin on his porch and he would have used that as the illustration. But instead, he uses something that is also sort of a spooky Halloween type imagery here, right? He's using images of tombs and graveyards and dead people. So what the heck is Jesus talking about here? Because sometimes I think we read Jesus' words like they're sort of random, like some sort of weird, random, disconnected sage type stuff that we're like, wow, I don't know what that means, but it's deep, right? But instead, Jesus, as we kind of dig into these things, hopefully what we've been learning is that Jesus is often addressing things that people understood in his day and knew about. And they knew about tombs. So what is going on here in Matthew 23, verses 27 and 28? What the heck are these whitewashed tombs? All right, well, what's going on here is particularly 3 times a year, Jews would go to Jerusalem for major religious festivals, and it would be this big pilgrimage. You would take your family and you would go to Jerusalem for these three major feasts, these three major religious feasts and ceremonies. And the biggest of these was Passover, right? That's the biggest religious feast. It was kind of like getting ready for Christmas. You know, you got to make all your preparations, you got to get them all in order and all that. You had to get ready and you had to go to Jerusalem for Passover. And there were these tombs along the route and in the city. And right before Passover, the Jewish people would go and take white lime dust and they would paint or powder and cover each of these tombs to make it temporarily bright white. Now, of course, this white lime dust, it didn't cover like a good, Sherman-Williams paint, right? Which would last, years. This didn't last that long. It would wash off and they would become dingy again. But they would, next year they'd white them all up with the white lime dust. And you think, well, why would they do this? Why did they? What was the purpose? Was this part of the religious ceremony? Well, sort of. Let me give you a couple reasons why, and because Jesus points these out in his woe or his curse today. And the first reason why you would whitewash tombs was to make these old, dirty tombs look beautiful, to dress them up a little bit, right? I mean, obviously, a way to honor those who died and memorialize them is to make their tombs or their graves look nice occasionally, right? And maybe during certain times of the year, you want to spruce them up a little bit and make them look nice, because sometimes a memorial or a grave or a tomb can be something very beautiful. Example of this is I was, in Hawaii a few years back, and we went, when you're there in Honolulu, you're right next to the Pearl Harbor memorial stuff. And so we went there and we went out to Pearl Harbor. And I think here is it December 7th, I think is the anniversary of Pearl Harbor Day. And that's, I think this year would be the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. But I remember we went out there to Pearl Harbor and we were there out on the memorial over the USS Arizona. And it was just so beautiful. I mean, you're in Hawaii. You're in a tropical paradise, and you go out there and you go onto this memorial and it's beautiful, right? The water's beautiful, the water's clear, the memorial itself is stark white, you got the beaches around you and everything. It is just a really, really beautiful place. And yet, at some point, it sort of dawns on you that you are over the top of this warship. And inside, entombed within the ship, are over 1,000 Marines for which this is their graveyard. And you almost forget it's a graveyard because it's so beautiful. And see, that's what whitewashing a tomb will do. It will make it look nice. Even if it is a place of suffering and death and horror, it can be made to look nice with enough cleanup. And it can be beautiful. Now, Jesus is going to relate this to the religious leaders, right? This idea of you look beautiful on the outside. And I guess I would say that I have a lot of gripes about religion that has gone bad. But there are some things about religion that are very beautiful. In fact, there are some things about religion, even from the outside, that look very beautiful. And it might be worth just a moment here in our in-person gatherings. We have opportunities where we kind of turn to the person next to us or together as a group. We just sort of discuss something together. And maybe this is a good point of reflection right here for us, even here online. I mean, maybe you want to even just pause the video for a second and turn to the person that you're watching this with, or if you're by yourself, maybe you just want to hit pause and reflect on this question for a minute. But the question here is simply, what in religion have you seen that is beautiful? Because we're talking here a lot about the death of religion and all the things of religion that are bad, but there are some things about religion that can be very beautiful. And that isn't Jesus' whole point here. We're going to get to that in a minute. His point is something else. But I do think it's worth stopping and reflecting for a minute on some of the things of religion that end up being very beautiful. And so if you want to take a moment just to think about that or discuss it with the person next to you, hit pause on the video and pick it back up in a second. But there's another reason besides just beautifying a tomb that is the reason you would want to whitewash it. In fact, making it beautiful was not really the primary reason that they whitewashed tombs. In fact, it was really just a side effect, because the main reason that you would whitewash a tomb in Jesus' day was as a giant warning. The idea was, let's paint them just stark white so that you'll see them from far off, you'll notice them, and you won't go near them, and you won't touch them. In other words, the primary goal of all this work of whitewashing the tombs wasn't to make them pretty. I mean, most people wouldn't have even thought of these tombs as something beautiful to visit, not like some sort of an attraction where you'd go and, have a picnic lunch or something with the family. No, they would have thought of these tombs, these graves, as places to be avoided. And what you wouldn't want to do is accidentally stumble upon one of these tombs or graves without knowing it, because there are some consequences from that we learn from the Old Testament. Numbers chapter 19 verse 16 gives us the overall problem and the reason why we want to let people know where these graves and tombs are. Numbers 19:16 says, anyone out in the open who touches someone who has been killed with a sword or someone who has died a natural death, okay, if you touch a dead body, or anyone who touches a human bone or even a grave will be unclean for 7 days. Okay, we have a problem here, right? We have a law here talking about avoiding dead bodies, even human remains, or even the graves that they're buried in themselves. Now, the law isn't saying here that there's anything sinful about touching these things. There's nothing, you're not sinning by doing it. But what the law says is that it makes you ritually impure. In other words, you can't participate in certain religious things for a week. You need to take a week before you participate in the life of some of these religious activities. Now, this would be an especially big deal during these 3 major festivals, because you remember, we have these families traveling to Jerusalem from all over the countryside in order to participate in the religious feasts and festivals happening in Jerusalem. And you wouldn't want to make a mistake and ruin the entire holiday, right? I mean, because what if as you're traveling, you accidentally stepped on a grave? They might not be very well marked. Or what if you got up in the middle of the night and you had to go pee? And so you stumble out of your camp into the bushes and realize you have stumbled onto a grave. And all of a sudden now you are ritually unclean for a week, and it is going to ruin your holiday because you are not going to be able to participate in the religious observances that you are traveling all this way and making all this effort to participate in. And so they would whitewash the tombs as a way of saying, stay away. It was like, just hanging up caution tape. That yellow caution tape? It was like hanging that up all around these graveyards. And yes, the white made them pretty on the outside, but ultimately they were a warning for how being in this area would corrupt your life and not allow you to participate in the things that you wanted to participate in. Now, Jesus is using this imagery, and he is using it as an example of religion gone bad. And he says, just like these graves have been cleaned up and look pretty, so you religious leaders have, cleaned yourselves up on the outside. You look all pretty. You do all of these religious things on the outside, and you do them in a very public way so that everyone can see you, and all the people think you are heroes. You are brilliantly whitewashed tombs. I mean, you look as good as you could look on the outside. And you say, well, how are they doing this? How are they whitewashing themselves? Well, in all sorts of ways. Jesus mentions these in Matthew 6. He says this. He says that they were doing it in how they gave. Matthew 6, verse 2, so when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, to be honored by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. Jesus is saying here, in the way that you give, you make yourself look as good as possible. In fact, every time you give, you blow a trumpet just to let people know that you have been giving. And Jesus is saying, you're doing this just so people can see you on the outside. But it wasn't just in how they gave, it was also in how they prayed. Matthew 6, verse 5. And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. Right? How do they pray? Well, they just go to the most public spots. They stand up front where everyone can see them, and they talk as loud as they possibly can so that nobody walking by will be able to miss the fact that they, of course, are praying, right? So that's how they give, it's how they pray, it's even how they fast, which kind of goes along with praying. Matthew 6, verse 16, it says, and when you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. All right, who are these hypocrites that Jesus keeps referring to? It's the religious leaders, the Pharisees, right? He's saying, even when you fast, you just got to let everybody know you're fasting. You make yourselves like, oh, I'm so hungry. I haven't eaten in days, right? You just make yourself look so hungry. And the whole reason is because you want people to know that you're fasting. You're making yourself pretty on the outside. They did it even with their promises. Matthew 15, verse 5 to 6 says, but you say it's all right for people to say to their parents, sorry, I can't help you, for I have vowed to give to God what I would have given to you. In this way, you say they don't need to honor their parents. We have these religious leaders here who were under obligation to take care of their parents, their older parents, but when it came down to this promise to take care of their parents, they would give the money away here to the temple, which was really to themselves, and they'd say, oh, I can't do it. I would do it, but I had to give the money over here instead. And so they would look really good on the outside for the way that they were giving, but they were doing it in a way that it was helpful and beneficial to them while looking good on the outside. Even the way that they, if we want to call it fundraising, Jesus already mentioned their fundraising techniques, right? Matthew 23, verse 14. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of the law, and you Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shamelessly cheat widows out of their property and then pretend to be pious by making long prayers in public. Because of this, you will be severely punished. Right? So their fundraising here has to do with ripping off widows, but they do it in such a way that they come out looking good on the outside. And Jesus is saying, you do all these things, and you manage to look really good in public on the outside. People think you guys are heroes. He says, but I know the truth. You are rotten to the core. And just like the outside beauty of these graves is a warning to stay away from these graveyards, so your prideful preoccupation with this type of show-off religion is actually a warning for people to stay away from you. You think that doing all this stuff makes you look good, but Jesus says it's actually a warning to everyone else to stay away from you. You put yourself up as heroes, but you're really a curse to people's lives. Ouch! Those are Jesus' words for the religious elite, the leaders of his day. And it's hard to imagine us here today saying anything as strong-worded against the religious leaders today that Jesus hasn't already said. I mean, he says some stuff here where he just pulls no punches. And it's this crazy idea that he mentions here that people in religious leadership might actually be harmful to those who are truly trying to connect with God. I mean, they should be helping people to connect to God. And Jesus is saying, no, you're harmful to them. When they see you, they should run away. Now, whether intentional or not, these religious leaders are harming other people. And maybe that brings us to another really good question today, a place to stop and think for a moment, because we do want to be people who ask a lot of questions. And as we've just asked the question, what is some of the beauty that you've seen in religion? Jesus' main point here is that there's a lot of things in religion that are actually rotten. And so maybe a good place to stop here for a moment is to ponder this question: what in religion have you seen that is dead and rotting? Because maybe you've seen some things in religion that you admire, but perhaps you've also seen some things in religion that looked and smelled rotten on the inside. And maybe they were covered by some things that looked good, but what was rotten inside actually harmed people. People that you loved, people that you cared about, perhaps even you yourself. And maybe you've even found yourself like Jesus, wanting to warn people to stay away from that type of religion. So take a minute. Maybe turn to the person next to you and push pause on this video for a second and discuss what is it that you've seen in religion that was dead and rotting. Perhaps something that you saw cursing others around it. Now, whatever it is that you notice there, I just want to say I am so sorry for those things. And that Jesus himself, he sees it too. And he doesn't turn a blind eye to it. In fact, he acknowledges those things with you. Because Jesus is against externalized religion, where your life on the exterior of your religion exceeds the life in your heart, where you're doing things on the outside to look good, but on the inside, you're rotten to the core. Now, of course, it's easy to point fingers at the Pharisees, right? Or perhaps even, as we may have discussed in this question, it's also easy to point the finger at other religious leaders that we know personally today, not just Pharisees that we read about in the Bible text. But I imagine if we sit around and discuss this question long enough, we'll begin to easily point fingers at religious leaders that we know today. And so that's pretty easy, low-hanging fruit. But the question is, how are we to take this to heart today ourselves? How are we supposed to apply this to us? And I think, though perhaps it's uncomfortable to acknowledge it, it's worth mentioning that we often do the same thing that the Pharisees are accused of. It applies to us too. We have the same temptations, and we have to let Jesus' words here do their work in us beyond just point the fingers at how they've made religion bad. We should probably allow these words to sink in a bit and ask how they can transform us, where we've got it wrong, and where we need to allow Jesus to bring us life. Now, I've noticed when it comes to religion, there are some things that we want to do, there are some things we don't want to do, and there are some things that we must do. And when it comes to religion, one of the things we often want to do is we want to clean up the outside a lot. Even us, not religious leaders then or now, just speaking you and me today, right? We want to whitewash our outside. I know I do. And the reason you say, why do we want to do this? Why is the temptation for that? Well, the reason, at least for me, is because I think I care what people think about me. And maybe you do too. Now, I don't always want to care. I want to go about my life not caring what other people think about me. But I know how I think about other people sometimes, and I know I'm not unique, so others are probably thinking the same thoughts about me. And so I end up working hard to make myself look nice on the outside and get a nice, fresh, clean coat of paint up from time to time. Because we want people to think certain things about us. We want them to think good things about us. And we're afraid sometimes to let people get a little too close to see beyond the facade, because then we won't be able to have them think things about us that we want them to think. And they might start to see some things about us that we don't want them to know about. And ironically, the worse life gets, the more we have struggle in our week or our day, the more we try to cover that up with some veneer that looks pretty. Or perhaps we just want people to know that we're right, that our beliefs are right, our way of thinking is right, and so we externalize how we live more than we actually live privately. I see this a lot in the culture war today, right? People saying, we got to fight to keep Christ in Christmas. You're going to hear a lot of that over the next few weeks, right? You got to say Merry Christmas, not Happy Holidays, because we got to keep Christ in Christmas, right? And we fight these external battles, but then end up getting so caught up in consumerism that we ourselves miss the Christ in our own homes and lives. You see, it's so much easier to kind of fight something out there or beautify this thing up on the outside. That's the thing that I often want to do in religion. It's my first impulse, is how can I make this outside stuff look good so that other people will respect and like me. That's how religion has been almost forever. That's the thing we want to do when it comes to religion. The thing we often don't want to do is we don't want to be vulnerable about the mess of stuff that is going on inside. To admit to ourselves, or really to anyone, that we are actually messed up, that beneath this nice veneer is a person who doesn't live up to all they say they believe. And none of us do. Not even me. There's all sorts of things that I don't live up to the thing that I know that I believe. And we're afraid to let that be seen by others. We want to clean up the outside, but most of us, when it comes to religion, we don't want to be vulnerable about who we really are on the inside. I was thinking about, holidays, you got to clean up your house because you probably got family or friends coming over, maybe a Christmas party or something, so you clean up the house. And no matter how nice your house is, no matter how orderly you normally keep your house, you probably have one space where you throw all of your junk. And I remember as a kid, we'd clean up the house, and we had this closet at the house I grew up in, and we just kind of shove everything in there, right? And the house will look clean, but if you were to open up that closet, you'd probably be taken over by a tidal wave of just junk that would fall at you, right? We just kind of clean up by shoving everything into that closet, and we just kind of hide it away. And I feel like many of us do that in religion too, don't we? We don't want to deal with the real stuff inside. Doubt, fear, sin, loneliness, hopelessness. You see, to admit some of those things, even to ourselves, is scary. And to admit them to someone else means we have to be so vulnerable, because people might think less of you. You might think less of you. And it's understandable that we don't want to do this, isn't it? Because many of us have been hurt, especially in religious situations where we risked a moment of vulnerability and we were punished for it. And so sometimes there's very good reasons we don't want to be vulnerable about what is going on inside. It's why when you ask someone, how are you? And they say, I'm terrible, that you kind of cringe, because there's a story coming, right? They stepped over a line here. You were just saying hello. They stepped over a line, and now it's going to require your moment to stop and allow them to be transparent. And it's probably going to require some transparency of you. And it's tough. It's a risk. You see, what we want to do in religion is we want to clean things up nice. What we don't want to do in religion is be vulnerable about who we are on the inside. But what we absolutely must do is let transformation happen from the inside out. We got to start inside first. To stop the facade building and get real and let God work on our heart. It means we're going to have to actually struggle, which is one of our core values, this idea that we will struggle together. We're a group of people who don't have all the answers. We're trying to follow Jesus. We want to know what it means to live like Jesus, to allow him to begin to change us. But there's a struggle in that. There's some things that I don't want to give up. There's some things that I still hold allegiances to that I'm not quite willing to surrender yet. And there is a struggle in the middle of it. There's some doubt about, will it really work your way, Jesus? There's some fear that if I live the way that Jesus has, that maybe people will trample on me and maybe rights won't be set right the way that I want them to be set right. I mean, there's all sorts of struggle. But what we must do is be brave enough to embrace that struggle, to be open with it, so that our energy goes into letting God change us on the inside instead of wearing ourselves out with all this energy trying to maintain a false outside. Because I'm telling you, that is wearisome. And I have gotten so tired in religion over the years of just trying to maintain something that looks on the outside really good. And to be really honest, that takes so much effort, so much work, that I don't have the energy to allow God to change what's happening on the inside. And maybe that's the application for us today. Maybe it's time to start to take down the facade and just be real. To let God do a work in us before we start working on us. To stop playing at religion on the outside and start allowing God to transform us on the inside. And the only way I know how to do that is if we do it together. I think the only way God transforms us is not just alone or individually, but somehow using relationships, right? I mean, God is relational with us, to us, and we are to be relational with one another. And some of the best way that God begins to work on my character is in the relationships with other people. But I have to be willing to let down my guard a little bit and become vulnerable with who I am on the inside. And religion that doesn't take that serious, religion that never takes down the wall enough to be honest about who I am on the inside. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, it's a risk. But religion that never lowers the wall down enough to actually be vulnerable about who we really are ends up always defaulting to whitewashing the outside of the tomb. So today, maybe a good place to kind of end us, and a question for us to discuss is something to help us practice being known and belonging. You know, this idea of being a little vulnerable means that we're going to have to risk something, and I imagine we can't just risk it all right from the beginning. We sort of need to practice what it means to be known by someone else, to belong to a group, that I'm here for you, you're here for me. I imagine that is sort of foreign to us in a lot of ways, and we have to practice it. And so maybe today it's just taking a moment to risk something small. Maybe you've got comfortability with someone that you're sitting next to in your room, or maybe when you're done with this, you can give a call to someone and say, hey, I want to just share a little something about me today. And perhaps that relationship is trustworthy enough, it's deep enough that you can share something meaningful. But if you don't have a deep relationship with like that, maybe find someone that you can talk to, even in this church community, that you could talk to and say, I'm just going to risk this little bit. It's not the whole thing about me, but I have to start somewhere to practice what it means to lower the wall and be vulnerable, to be known and to belong. And so why don't you risk a little bit today? What is it? What is something that you're wrestling with inside right now? What's bothering you? What doubts are you wrestling with? What fears are you battling? What challenges are you facing? You see, it could just be that sharing that type of vulnerability, just sharing a glimpse of who you are on the inside, will actually help resurrection begin in you. There's a church in a city called Sardis, and it had a reputation for being alive, being a church where lots was happening and going on. And every person said that this was just such a great church community. Well, every person said that except for one, Jesus. Jesus said it was dead. Revelation 3, 1-2. He says, I know your deeds. You have a reputation of being alive, but you're dead. So wake up, strengthen what remains and is about to die, for I have found your deeds unfinished in the sight of my God. See, we got some similar words here of Jesus to what he said to the Pharisees, and now he's saying them to a church much, much later. But they're words that perhaps we should take to heart today too. Let's not have a reputation for being alive. Let's allow God to help us fully live. And if religion is often about prideful facades on the outside, let's choose instead to be vulnerable about who we really are. I'm going to pray for us, and then we'll go to communion today. And Jesus, I want to thank you that you do care for us so much, that you're not looking for a bunch of mindless robots offering sacrifices to you and going through religious rituals, that somehow you are pleased by those things, but that ultimately you want to meet us right where we are, that you want to help us deal with the stuff that's deep inside, not just the stuff on the outside. And God, we confess that a lot of times we've approached religion and it's worn us out. It's been really wearying because we've had to spend so much time trying to look good on the outside when we didn't have any energy left over to allow you to do the hard work on the inside of us. And God, we're sorry for the times that we have participated in religion that functioned that way, as really as a game rather than as transformation. And what we ask today is that you'd help us to be vulnerable with one another. God, that perhaps that sort of vulnerable sharing with one another is an antidote to the pridefulness of religion. God, thank you for the many travelers that are on this path together. Thank you for people who are online, in person. And Jesus, we do want to be there to support one another. There's people in our group that we look at and we say, oh man, I want to be there for them. And sometimes we look at people and we think, oh man, they just got it all right. They're doing great. But there's always stuff going on under the scenes. And so God, we pray that we would become a group that is able to be vulnerable and charitable and gracious with one another, trustworthy to guard the delicate things that we share with one another. God, we love you. We thank you that you have come, that you've died for us, that you've come back to life and given us new life with you. And it's in your name we pray. Amen. Let's go to communion today.
Your faithfulness, oh God, you wrestle with the sinner's heart. You lead us by still waters into mercy, and nothing can keep us apart. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough, your grace is enough, your grace is enough for me. your love and justice, God. You use the weak to lead the strong. You lead us in the song of your salvation, and all your people sing along. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Hey, your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Yeah, your grace is enough. Heaven reaching down to us. Your grace is enough for me. Hey, your grace is enough, and I'm covered in your love. Your grace is enough for me. For me. For me. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Billy, for leading us in a time of communion. I really appreciate that. Now, we have a couple announcements here coming up. A few things. First of all, if you would like to give and donate, you can do that by going to our website at findpathways.com/donate, and you can make a one-time gift or a recurring gift there. That would be fantastic. You can even text in a gift amount to, if you can text in a dollar amount rather, to the number 84321. And there's a little one-time setup there if you haven't done that before, but you can text in to give that way if you would like to do that. Also, we have an email newsletter that has some of our announcements and stuff that's going on, and there will be quite a bit of that going on in December, different announcements and things that are happening. And so if you want to make sure you don't miss out on those things, we do post them on Facebook and things like that. But if you want to get the email newsletter, you can do that by just messaging us on Facebook. Tell us your name, your email address, or my email's on the screen there if you want to just drop me a note and tell me your name and email. Would love to add you onto that as well. Also, just a little thank you for the Thanksgiving baskets. We put together Thanksgiving baskets with food and stuff for families in the area who couldn't afford their own Thanksgiving meals, and so we wanted to help out and do that. Lots of you donated money to buy the meats and even to buy some of the groceries. Others of you went shopping at the stores and bought things and brought it to our in-person gatherings, and we were able to deliver that this week, which was super fun. I got to deliver some of those to some schools in the area where families needed some help, and so that was super fun. Every year it's fun to drop those off so that families can have their holiday meal together. So I just want to say thank you for doing that. It's really fun to be a part of those things, And we have some stuff like that coming up. Christmas here as well. And next week we'll be kind of rolling out some of the stuff that we're going to be doing to help with some Christmas needs in our neighborhoods as well. So stay tuned for that. Also, speaking of the Christmas season here, December is right around the corner sometime this coming week. It's going to flip into December, which is mind-blowing, but that means all sorts of things. For instance, this year we are going to have an in-person Christmas Eve service. Crazy. I mean, it has been a while, right? It's been 2 years since we had an in-person Christmas Eve service. We'll also have something online. If you want to do that as well, we'll have a little thing for you online as well. But if you want to meet us in person, we'll be at the normal spot at the Archbishop Murphy High School. We'll meet there on Christmas Eve, and we will have a Christmas Eve service. Then the other thing you need to know about our Decembers together is that we don't have any sort of gatherings on the final Sunday of the month. So this year, it's the 26th of December, so the final Sunday of December will be off. There won't be an online thing, and there won't be an in-person thing. And that's coming up a ways down the road, but just want to let you know what's coming up. Okay, that is pretty much it. Hopefully you have a really great week. It's the rain and the wind is just wearing me out, but maybe we'll get some sun peeking through the clouds, and even if it's raining, who cares? It's a Christmas season. Decorate your house, put on some Christmas music, just kind of enjoy the season, and hopefully you'll have a really great week. Okay, we'll talk to you next time. Bye.